Hello, and welcome back to Sleepy Mythological History. As you know, Greek mythology has long been a source of awe and fascination, offering stories that blend divine intervention, heroic deeds, and perilous quests. Among the countless legendary tales, the quest for the Golden Fleece stands out as one of the most captivating and adventurous. It tells the story of Jason, the son of King Aeson of Iolcos, and his epic journey to retrieve the sacred Golden Fleece, a symbol of ultimate power and kingship. The Golden Fleece guarded in the faraway kingdom of Colchis holds not only immense magical value, but also serves as the key to Jason's destiny and the reclaiming of his rightful throne. But the path to it is treacherous, filled with impossible challenges, mythical creatures, and a journey that tests every ounce of courage and loyalty. Jason's adventure is more than just a quest for an object. It is a story of leadership, friendship, and the triumph of willpower against insurmountable odds. To help him on this perilous journey, Jason assembles a group of brave souls, the Argonauts, a team of legendary heroes, each with their own extraordinary skills and abilities. Together, they set sail from Iolcos on a ship named Argo, hoping to reach Colchis, overcome the trials set before them, and ultimately bring the Golden Fleece back home. But the road ahead is filled with danger at every turn, and the team must work together, face fears, and unlock the secrets of their world to succeed. So what exactly is the Golden Fleece, and why is it so significant? In Greek mythology, the Golden Fleece is no ordinary object. It is the fleece of a magical golden ram gifted by the gods, and it resides in a sacred grove protected by a fire-breathing dragon. This mystical artifact is believed to bestow great power upon its possessor, symbolizing divine favor, leadership, and the right to rule. It's more than just a symbol of royalty. It's a talisman that connects the realms of mortals and gods, holding the power to change the course of history. For Jason, retrieving the Golden Fleece represents not only the reclaiming of his ancestral throne, but also a journey toward self-discovery and the realization of his own destiny as a leader. But Jason cannot do this alone. His success depends on the strength, wisdom, and bravery of his companions. This brings us to the Argonauts, the diverse band of heroes who join Jason on his journey. From the mighty Heracles to the musical genius Orpheus, from the fierce Atalanta to the resourceful Theseus. Each member of the crew has a unique set of skills that will be crucial to overcoming the challenges ahead. Together they embody the spirit of teamwork and sacrifice, proving that no quest can be completed alone. Are you ready to join Jason and the Argonauts on their incredible adventure? From battling harrowing monsters to navigating deadly seas, the journey to find the Golden Fleece is an epic story of heroism, friendship, and discovery. As we follow Jason's crew through each challenge, we're reminded that true greatness often requires more than just physical strength. It takes courage, loyalty, and the willingness to face the unknown. If you love tales of adventure, mythical creatures, and legendary heroes, don't miss out on this exciting journey. Hit that like button if you're ready to embark on this unforgettable quest, and subscribe to stay updated on every twist and turn of the story. Let's dive into the quest for the Golden Fleece together and discover the timeless lessons of courage, leadership, and destiny. In the vast landscape of Greek mythology, where gods, heroes, and mythical creatures intertwine in tales of bravery, betrayal, and fate, the Golden Fleece occupies a unique and sacred place. It is not just an object of great value, it is the symbol of divine power, royal authority, and the intermingling of human ambition with the will of the gods. This mystical artifact forms the heart of one of the most famous mythological quests, the quest for the Golden Fleece, undertaken by the hero Jason and his team of Argonauts. As we journey deeper into the story of the Golden Fleece, we will explore its profound significance in Greek mythology, its association with divine power, and the fascinating history that links it to the gods. This story is not just about a magical object. It's about the quest for ultimate power and the trials that heroes must face to claim it. So let's take a closer look at what the Golden Fleece represents, how it connects to power, and the origins of this legendary artifact. In the intricate web of Greek mythology, the Golden Fleece is far more than just a mythical object. It is a deeply sacred symbol representing the union of the divine and the mortal realms. According to myth, the Golden Fleece came from a magnificent ram born from the union of the sky god, Zeus, and the earth goddess, Gaia. In some versions, the ram was sent by Nephili, a cloud nymph. This ram had the unique ability to fly, and it played a crucial role in saving the lives of two children, Phrixus and Hele, who were in danger of being sacrificed by their cruel stepmother. The ram's ultimate sacrifice was deeply symbolic. After rescuing Phrixus and Hele, it was killed by King Aeetes of Colchis. The fleece, which was said to be of pure gold, was then hung in a sacred grove guarded by a fierce, never-sleeping dragon, ensuring that no mortal would be able to take it. This golden fleece was not only a physical object. It was a sacred artifact imbued with the power of the gods, and it represented divine favor and the assurance of victory over one's enemies. The ram's sacrifice and the protection of the fleece by a dragon suggest that the artifact was both a gift and a challenge, meant to test the worthiness of those who sought it. The Golden Fleece's spiritual importance is evident in how it was viewed by those who sought it. For Jason, retrieving the fleece was not merely about gaining a physical object, it was about proving his worthiness as a king, as well as gaining the divine favor of the gods. Its sacred nature meant that only those who had the approval of the gods could hope to succeed in taking it. Thus, the Golden Fleece embodies the central tenet of Greek mythology that the favor of the gods is paramount to success in any endeavor. The Golden Fleece's significance goes beyond its mystical and sacred attributes. It symbolizes absolute power and is tied to the idea of kingship and rule in the ancient Greek world. Its link to power is seen in the context of Jason's quest and the challenge that the fleece represents. According to myth, the person who controls the Golden Fleece gains the right to rule a right that comes not from mere inheritance, but from divine sanction. In the case of Jason, the Golden Fleece is a key to reclaiming his birthright. Jason's father, King Aeson, was overthrown by his brother Perilous, who took control of Iolcos. Jason, being the rightful heir, must prove his worth by retrieving the Golden Fleece to reclaim his throne. The fleece is not just a royal symbol, it is the ultimate proof that Jason deserves to rule as only someone favored by the gods would be able to complete the arduous task of retrieving it. Throughout the myth, the fleece is portrayed as more than just an emblem of kingship. It is a divine weapon. This aspect is evident in the actions of those who seek the fleece, such as Perilous, who is determined to prevent Jason from returning with it, fearing that Jason's success would signal his own downfall. The connection between the Golden Fleece and absolute power is also reinforced by the fact that the dragon guarding it never sleeps, symbolizing that power is always under threat and must be fiercely protected. Thus, the Golden Fleece represents the ultimate test of worthiness. It is a prize that signifies the ability to command not only earthly power, but also divine approval. This connection to power is not accidental. In the Greek mindset, ruling was not just a political act, it was a divine responsibility. The gods played an integral role in determining who had the right to rule, and the Golden Fleece was a clear manifestation of that divine will. The origins of the Golden Fleece are as mythical as the object itself. The story begins with the ram sent by the gods to rescue Phrixus and Helen. According to the myth, Phrixus, the son of King Aeetes of Boeotia, was about to be sacrificed by his father due to a prophecy. However, his mother Nephele sent a golden ram to save him. The ram carried Phrixus and his sister Hele across the sea, but during the journey, Hele fell off and drowned in what came to be known as the Hellespont, the strait between Europe and Asia. Phrixus, however, reached the land of Colchis safely, where he was warmly received by King Aeetes. In gratitude for the ram's help, Phrixus sacrificed the animal to Zeus and gave its golden fleece to the king. King Aeetes then hung the fleece in a sacred grove, where it was guarded by the dragon. The Golden Fleece's connection to the divine and its origins tied to Zeus, the king of the gods, give it an almost untouchable aura. It is not just an object of earthly value, it has a divine and universal significance. Over the centuries, the fleece became a symbol of divine will, of heroic endeavor, and of the eternal struggle between good and evil fate and free will. Jason's quest, then, is not just about retrieving an artifact, but about engaging with a story that has its roots deep in the mythological history of the gods. The Golden Fleece connects the heroic past to the present, bridging human ambition and divine providence. The Golden Fleece stands as a symbol that encapsulates the essence of Greek mythology. It is a sacred object deeply intertwined with divine forces, a powerful emblem of kingship, and a challenging test for any hero who seeks it. In the case of Jason, the fleece represents the ultimate test of worthiness both as a leader and as a mortal capable of invoking divine favor. From its humble beginnings as a magical ram to its final resting place in the sacred grove of Colchis, the history of the Golden Fleece is as rich and complex as the world of Greek mythology itself. As we continue to follow Jason's journey through the trials and tribulations that await him, we are reminded of the importance of the gods in determining the fate of mortals, and the ways in which objects like the Golden Fleece serve as symbols of power, destiny, and divine will. The quest to reclaim the Golden Fleece is not merely about acquiring a treasure. It is a quest to prove one's worth in the eyes of the gods and to restore order in a world shaped by both divine forces and human ambition. Now, as we delve deeper into Jason's heroic journey, let us remember the stakes. The quest for the Golden Fleece is not just a challenge of strength or wit, but a challenge to the very forces of fate and power that govern the universe. In the previous section, we explored the Golden Fleece and its sacred significance in Greek mythology. We learned that this artifact is not just a physical object of great value, but a symbol of divine favor, kingship, and the challenges that heroes must overcome. The quest for the Golden Fleece is a story that intertwines divine will with human ambition, and at the center of this quest is Jason, a hero destined for greatness. But who is Jason, and why must he embark on such a perilous journey? This section will take us into the life of Jason, his connection to the kingdom of Iolcos, and the relationship with his uncle Peleus, the man who forces him into this dangerous mission. Jason was born into the royal family of Iolcos, a small kingdom in Thessaly. His father, King Aeson, was a wise and just ruler beloved by his people. However, his reign was threatened when his brother Peleus usurped the throne through treachery. Peleus was a man consumed by greed and ambition, determined to rule the kingdom by any means necessary. He saw his brother Aeson as a threat to his power and decided to take drastic action. As a result of Peleus's betrayal, Jason's childhood was marked by tragedy and exile. Jason was still a young child when his father was overthrown. Fearing for the safety of his son, King Aeson secretly sent Jason away to be raised in the care of the wise centaur Chiron. Chiron was known for his wisdom, strength, and nurturing nature. He trained Jason in many arts, including combat strategy and leadership. Under Chiron's guidance, Jason grew into a man of remarkable strength, intellect, and courage, qualities that would prove invaluable when the time came for him to reclaim his birthright. Jason's early years were spent in relative obscurity, far from the royal palace of Iolcos. However, as he matured, he learned the truth of his heritage and the injustices that had befallen his family. It was then that the call for adventure and the desire to reclaim his father's throne grew strong within him. But Jason's journey was not just about personal revenge. It was about justice, honor, and the restoration of his kingdom. Although Jason grew up far from the court of Iolcos, the kingdom was never far from his mind. He knew that the throne was rightfully his. His father, King Aeson, was the legitimate ruler, but he had been displaced by the ambitions of his brother Peleus. Peleus, who had seized the throne, was a man who used treachery and deceit to secure his power. According to the myth, Peleus had long been afraid of a prophecy that foretold his downfall at the hands of a man wearing only one sandal. It was this prophecy that would eventually lead to his downfall and propel Jason into action. The story of the prophecy begins when Peleus, as the usurper of the throne, is warned by an oracle that he would be overthrown by someone who would appear wearing only one sandal. One day, as Jason sets out on a journey to Iolcos to claim his rightful place as king, he encounters Peleus. Jason, being unaware of the prophecy, wears a single sandal after losing one during his travels. Upon meeting Perilous, the prophecy is immediately recalled, and Perilous, fearful for his throne, sees an opportunity to rid himself of the threat once and for all. He decides to use Jason's claim to the throne as a pretext for sending him on a dangerous and seemingly impossible quest to the retrieval of the Golden Fleece. Perilous hopes that Jason's mission will end in failure, ensuring that he remains in power. However, this marks the beginning of a long and perilous journey for Jason. He may have been exiled and deprived of his rightful place as king, but Jason's courage and resolve would soon be tested in ways that no one could have predicted. Perilous, though, determined to rid himself of Jason, inadvertently sets into motion the events that will ultimately lead to Jason's triumph. The quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece was not just a random task thrown at Jason by his uncle Perilous. It was a trial one that Jason had no choice but to undertake if he wanted to reclaim his birthright and restore justice to the kingdom of Iolcos. Perilous, understanding the strength and potential in Jason, decided that the only way Jason could prove his worth as the rightful ruler was by completing an almost impossible task. At first glance, the mission might seem like nothing more than an elaborate trap. Perilous knew that the Golden Fleece was located in Colchis, a far-off kingdom guarded by many dangers. The fleece itself was protected by a fire-breathing dragon, and only the most capable hero could hope to retrieve it. By sending Jason on such a mission, Perilous hoped that Jason would either die in the attempt or be forced to abandon his claim to the throne. Either way, Perilous would have been rid of the threat to his reign. However, Jason's need to prove himself went beyond personal pride. The mission represented a chance to restore balance and justice to the kingdom of Iolcos. For Jason, the quest was not just about reclaiming the throne, it was about asserting the legitimacy of his birth and right to rule. It was also a chance to restore peace to his people who had suffered under Perilous' tyrannical rule. The Golden Fleece, according to myth, was a symbol of royal power, divine favor, and legitimate rule. Whoever possessed the fleece had the authority to rule a kingdom. In many ways, the fleece represented more than just an object. It was a seal of divine approval and a mark of a true king. By retrieving it, Jason would not only prove his strength and courage, but also his worthiness to rule Iolcos. The quest was a divine test, one that would determine whether Jason was truly worthy of the throne that had been taken from his father. However, the challenge of retrieving the fleece was immense. Jason would need more than just strength to succeed. He would need wisdom, bravery, and above all, the support of others. And so the hero began his journey, assembling a group of legendary companions, the Argonauts, to join him on this quest. The Argonauts were a group of heroes who possessed extraordinary abilities, and together they would face the many trials that lay ahead on their way to Colchis. This mission, while deeply personal for Jason, would also be a test of his leadership. Jason was no longer just a prince seeking vengeance. He was becoming a leader of men capable of inspiring loyalty and guiding his companions through the most dangerous trials. His leadership skills would be tested at every step as he navigated the treacherous path to the Golden Fleece and encountered gods, monsters, and the wrath of Perilous himself. In the end, Jason's journey was not just about reclaiming a throne. It was about proving himself worthy of that throne. By accepting the challenge set before him by Perilous, Jason embarked on a mission that would change his life and the lives of those around him forever. His fate was inextricably tied to the success or failure of his quest. The Golden Fleece was not just an object. It was a symbol of divine approval, royalty, and justice. By retrieving it, Jason would not only reclaim his kingdom, but also cement his place in Greek mythology as one of the greatest heroes of all time. As we continue to follow Jason's story, we see him take his first steps toward greatness. But the path ahead is fraught with danger and uncertainty. Jason's resolve will be tested, and his leadership will be challenged by the trials that lie ahead. But one thing is certain, his journey has only just begun. The quest for the Golden Fleece is about to unfold in ways that no one could have foreseen. In the previous section, we delved into the life and background of Jason, the young prince of Iolcos, whose journey was set into motion by a treacherous usurpation of the throne by his uncle Peleus. As Jason's rightful claim to the throne was challenged, he was forced into a dangerous mission, the retrieval of the Golden Fleece by his cunning and ambitious uncle. But who exactly is Peleus, and what are his motives for sending Jason on this perilous quest? In this section, we will take a closer look at Peleus's personality, his actions that led to the suffering of his family and kingdom, and his complex role in the story that shapes Jason's destiny. Peleus, the usurper of the throne of Iolcos, is a figure driven by fear, greed, and a thirst for power. He is the brother of King Aeson, Jason's father, and while Aeson was beloved by his people for his wisdom and fairness, Peleus was everything Aeson was not. In some versions of the myth, Peleus is portrayed as a cruel and tyrannical ruler who is more concerned with maintaining his power than the well-being of his subjects. However, it is important to note that Peleus was not always a villain by nature. His character arc is deeply shaped by a prophecy and the paranoia it stirs within him. When Peleus first seized the throne of Iolcos, he was driven by ambition and the belief that he was destined to rule. But his rule was not peaceful, and his paranoia soon set in. A prophecy foretold that Peleus would be overthrown by a man wearing only one sandal. Peleus, fearing the prophecy, took extreme measures to solidify his grip on the throne, even going so far as to eliminate anyone who might pose a threat to his reign. As a result, he exiled his brother King Aeson and took control of Iolcos. Peleus's reign became one marked by suspicion, manipulation, and a constant fear of being dethroned. Peleus's fear of the prophecy, combined with his ruthless nature, led him to devise a series of manipulative strategies to eliminate any potential threats. Despite his fear, however, Peleus's rule was still in place, and he continued to enjoy the power he had stolen from his brother. His actions, though driven by insecurity, reveal a character obsessed with maintaining control regardless of the cost. He believed that the more he eliminated perceived threats, the safer his position would be. When Jason, the rightful heir to the throne, returns to Iolcos, Peleus's fear is reignited. He sees Jason as the embodiment of the prophecy, and to him the one sandal that Jason wears is a clear sign that his reign is in jeopardy. Peleus, however, is not the type to relinquish power easily. Instead of immediately confronting Jason, he decides to manipulate the situation in his favor, sending the young prince on a dangerous and seemingly impossible quest. Peleus's actions in sending Jason to retrieve the Golden Fleece are deeply tied to his desire to rid himself of any threats to his rule while also testing Jason's worth. Peleus had no real desire to see his nephew succeed, but rather hoped that Jason would fail in his task, thus eliminating the challenge to his throne once and for all. The mission to retrieve the Golden Fleece, located in the far-off kingdom of Colchis, was undoubtedly a deadly and arduous quest. The fleece was guarded by a fierce dragon that never slept, and the journey was fraught with danger from both natural and supernatural sources. Peleus, aware of the danger involved, had no expectation that Jason would survive the mission. However, by sending Jason on such a dangerous task, Peleus was able to rid himself of a potential rival while simultaneously maintaining the illusion of a fair challenge. If Jason succeeded, Peleus hoped that Jason's achievement would be so difficult to attain that it would make Jason's rule controversial or worse, lead to his eventual demise. If Jason failed, Peleus would continue to reign unchallenged. There was also a psychological element to Peleus's decision. Peleus was not only trying to eliminate Jason as a political rival, but was also manipulating the situation to keep his own hands clean. By framing the task as a noble quest, Peleus hoped to maintain his image in the eyes of the people while secretly wishing for Jason's failure. The quest would be framed as a test of Jason's worth, a journey that, if completed successfully, would supposedly prove that Jason was the true ruler. However, Peleus was confident that Jason's task would be impossible, and thus assumed that he could maintain control over the kingdom. This manipulation also served another function. It kept the kingdom under control while distracting the public from Peleus's own actions. By sending Jason on the quest, Peleus hoped that the people of Iolcos would perceive him as a ruler who allowed for challenges to be made, thus preventing any revolt against his rule. In his mind, Jason's failure would reinforce the idea that he was the rightful ruler of Iolcos. This deception allowed Perilous to keep his authority intact and further solidified his position. Perilous' paranoia, born from the prophecy, and his desire to retain power led him to create a series of traps and deceptions for Jason. In addition to sending Jason on the quest for the Golden Fleece, Perilous also played psychological games designed to disorient and undermine the young prince's confidence and determination. One of the main tactics Perilous employed was the manipulation of Jason's motivation. Perilous was fully aware of Jason's desire to reclaim his birthright, and he understood that Jason's mission to retrieve the Golden Fleece was deeply personal. Perilous attempted to use Jason's sense of justice and rightful claim to the throne against him. The danger of the task combined with the emotional weight of the mission created a high-stakes scenario where Jason's sense of honor and duty would be tested at every turn. At the same time, Perilous was also aware that Jason needed the support of others to succeed in his quest. By sending Jason on a quest so dangerous and requiring him to assemble a crew of companions, the Argonauts Perilous hoped that Jason's journey would become a distraction or even a failure. If Jason could not convince the greatest heroes to join him, or if the journey took too long, Perilous could use this to further undermine Jason's position. The traps that Perilous set for Jason were not always physical in nature. Instead, Perilous' schemes often played on Jason's emotions and his moral compass. Perilous knew that Jason would not turn back from the mission out of a sense of duty to his people and to his father. By sending Jason on such an impossible quest, Perilous sought to weaken Jason's resolve and make him question whether the prize, the Golden Fleece, was worth the cost. Additionally, Perilous believed that if Jason succeeded, the consequences of his victory would bring about a new set of challenges. If Jason somehow survived the mission and returned with the Golden Fleece, Perilous knew that the legitimacy of Jason's claim to the throne would be undeniable. However, Perilous also hoped that Jason's victory would be tainted by the overwhelming challenges of the journey and the political complexities that would arise from having two powerful contenders for the throne. Perilous, the tyrant and usurper of Iolcos, plays a crucial role in Jason's journey, though not as an adversary who faces him directly. Instead, Perilous' tactics revolve around manipulating Jason into taking on a nearly impossible task that could lead to Jason's death or at best his failure. Perilous' fear, manipulation, and paranoia drive his actions, but in doing so, he inadvertently sets into motion the very journey that will ultimately lead to his own downfall. Jason's mission to retrieve the Golden Fleece, a seemingly impossible task, becomes a test of character, a test of his courage, his ability to inspire others, and his rightful place in the world. While Perilous hoped to manipulate the situation to his advantage, it is through these very trials that Jason proves his worth as a true hero and leader. In the end, Perilous' role as the antagonist is not just about seeking power, it is about underestimating the potential of his nephew who, with the help of the gods and his companions, would rise to the challenge in ways Perilous could never have imagined. After we explored the role of Perilous, Jason's uncle, and the tyrant who usurped his throne, Perilous set into motion the perilous journey Jason must undertake to retrieve the Golden Fleece, hoping that the impossible task would lead to Jason's downfall. However, Jason's journey is far from solitary. His quest would not be one he could face alone, and in the face of such monumental challenges, he assembles a team of legendary heroes, the Argonauts. These brave and skilled individuals would become crucial companions in Jason's mission, each contributing their unique abilities, strengths, and wisdom. In this section, we will explore the diverse group of Argonauts, their individual qualities, and how their collective efforts ultimately shape the outcome of the quest. The Argonauts were not just a group of warriors. They were a coalition of mythological heroes, each possessing extraordinary skills, talents, or divine favor. The very name Argonauts is derived from the ship they sailed on, the Argo, named after its builder Argus. The group was united by a single goal to retrieve the Golden Fleece. While Jason was their leader, it was the contributions of these diverse heroes that made the quest possible. Each member of the Argonauts played a crucial role in overcoming the numerous obstacles that lay ahead. The group's diversity was one of its greatest strengths. From demigods to mortal heroes, musicians to warriors, the Argonauts embodied a wide range of talents and abilities. They were a blend of different backgrounds and skill sets, each bringing something unique to the table. The strength of the group lay not just in their individual capabilities, but also in the unity and camaraderie that they shared, which proved essential when facing the perilous trials ahead. Jason, as their leader, had the daunting task of not only guiding the Argonauts on the journey, but also of bringing together such a diverse group of individuals, each with their own motives, strengths, and weaknesses. Despite the challenges of leadership, Jason's ability to inspire and unite his companions was pivotal in the success of the quest. The Argonauts are a testament to the power of teamwork and the idea that great accomplishments are achieved through cooperation, not individual might. While the Argonauts were many, several of them stand out due to their incredible feats and legendary statuses. These individuals, with their distinctive abilities, played critical roles in ensuring the success of the journey. Let's explore some of the most prominent members of the Argonauts and their contributions to the quest. Heracles, perhaps the most famous hero in Greek mythology, was a central figure in the Argonauts. Known for his incredible strength and heroic deeds, Heracles was a son of Zeus, and his feats were legendary across the ancient world. He had completed the 12 labors, a series of difficult tasks that had earned him immortality in the eyes of the gods. During the quest for the Golden Fleece, Heracles served as the group's primary powerhouse. His strength was unmatched, and his presence provided both physical protection and moral support for the Argonauts. One of his most notable contributions to the quest was when he helped to defeat the Stymphalian birds, a deadly group of creatures with metallic feathers that could pierce the skin of anyone nearby. Despite his physical prowess, Heracles was not without his flaws. His impulsive nature and occasional acts of anger led to tensions within the group. Nevertheless, his dedication to the quest and the help he provided the team were invaluable. Heracles' participation was also symbolic. He represented the archetype of the warrior hero and provided the Argonauts with the confidence that even the most formidable monsters and trials could be overcome. Another key figure among the Argonauts was Orpheus, the legendary musician and poet, whose musical talents had the power to charm anyone who heard him play. Orpheus was the son of the muse Calliope and the god Apollo, and his abilities with the lyre were unparalleled. His music could calm wild animals, charm even the most fearsome creatures, and even move the hearts of the gods. Orpheus's contributions to the Argonauts' journey were crucial in more than one instance. Perhaps the most famous example of his power was when the Argonauts encountered the Sirens, whose haunting song lured sailors to their doom. The sirens sang with such beauty that no man could resist, but Orpheus played his lyre, filling the air with music even more enchanting. His melodies drowned out the sirens' song, saving the crew from their deadly charm. Orpheus's role as the group's musical savior demonstrated that strength was not always the key to overcoming challenges. Sometimes intelligence and creativity could be just as powerful. Atalanta, one of the few women to join the Argonauts, was a fierce warrior and an expert hunter. Born as the daughter of Iolcos and raised in the wilderness, Atalanta was a skilled athlete, renowned for her speed, strength, and hunting prowess. She was raised by bears, and this wild upbringing gave her exceptional survival instincts and an unparalleled talent for tracking animals. Atalanta's role in the quest was significant. She was one of the few warriors capable of matching the men in both combat and endurance. Her swift abilities proved essential in numerous situations, such as when the group had to deal with dangerous beasts and monstrous creatures on their journey. Atalanta's presence in the crew also underscored the theme of equality in Greek myth, where women were able to take on the same heroic roles as their male counterparts. Her determination and unflinching bravery made her a key member of the team, and her loyalty to Jason was unwavering. Theseus, the famous hero who defeated the Minotaur in the labyrinth, was another important member of the Argonauts. Known for his intelligence, bravery, and sense of justice, Theseus had already earned a reputation as a hero of great renown. His involvement in the quest for the Golden Fleece showcased his leadership abilities and his willingness to assist Jason, even though his own homeland of Athens was dealing with its own struggles. Theseus was a fighter with a sense of moral clarity, and his contributions to the group included leadership and combat expertise. He was especially helpful when it came to devising strategies for overcoming various obstacles on their journey. While Theseus's role was not as physically prominent as Heracles or as spiritually significant as Orpheus, his ability to think strategically and his sense of fairness made him a key ally to Jason and the Argonauts. One of the central themes of the Argonauts' quest is the importance of friendship, unity, and cooperation. The members of the group came from various backgrounds with different skills and experiences, but they were united by a common goal, the retrieval of the Golden Fleece. Throughout the journey, the Argonauts faced countless challenges, from monsters like the Stymphalian birds and the dragon guarding the fleece to the treacherous waters of the Symplegades clashing rocks. Alone, no single hero could have survived the trials. Yet together, through mutual trust and respect, they were able to overcome the many obstacles in their path. The unity of the Argonauts was especially significant in the face of adversity. The heroes faced conflicts both internal and external. There were moments when tension arose, particularly when some members of the group disagreed on how to proceed. However, their shared sense of purpose and their deep respect for each other's abilities allowed them to overcome their differences and work together toward a common goal. The friendships formed on this journey were not just about mutual respect for strength, but for the values of loyalty, selflessness, and sacrifice. In the end, the success of the quest can be attributed to the collective strength and unity of the Argonauts. Jason may have been the leader, but it was the teamwork and sacrifice of his companions that made the quest a success. The bond of friendship formed on the Argo was a critical factor in the triumph of their mission, and a reminder of the importance of working together in the face of great adversity. The Argonauts were more than just a group of heroes. They were a symbol of what can be accomplished when individuals with different talents come together for a common cause. Their strength, courage, and friendship were what enabled them to overcome the many challenges of their journey. Each member brought something essential to the table, from the brute force of Heracles to the wisdom of Theseus, and from the artistic genius of Orpheus to the unwavering determination of Atalanta. The unity and teamwork of the Argonauts exemplified the power of collaboration and the importance of collective effort in achieving the impossible. Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece would not have been successful without the invaluable support of the Argonauts, and their story continues to inspire tales of heroism, unity, and selflessness across cultures. In the previous part, we explored the Argonauts, Jason's brave companions, who were key to the success of his quest for the Golden Fleece. Each hero brought unique skills, strength, and wisdom to the journey, making them an indispensable part of the team. However, the quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece was not a simple mission. It would be fraught with danger and challenges. As Jason and his crew set sail on the Argo, they were about to embark on one of the most perilous adventures in Greek mythology. In this section, we will look at how the Argonauts prepared for their journey, the difficulties they encountered at the outset, and the valuable lessons they learned as they began their quest. The preparation for the quest for the Golden Fleece was as crucial as the journey itself. Before embarking on such a daring mission, there were numerous challenges to address. The Argo, the ship on which they would sail, was a symbol of the unity and collective strength of the Argonauts. Constructed by the master shipbuilder Argus, the Argo was no ordinary vessel. It was divinely crafted under the guidance of the goddess Athena, and its most notable feature was its ability to speak thanks to a piece of wood from the sacred Dodona oak. The ship was built specifically for the dangerous journey ahead, and it was made to carry the immense burden of the Argonauts' hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Once the ship was ready, Jason and the Argonauts began the process of gathering supplies, securing provisions for the long journey ahead, and preparing themselves mentally and physically for the challenges they would face. While the Argonauts were strong, skilled, and capable, they were also aware of the dangerous waters they would be sailing into. Colchis, where the Golden Fleece was located, was not just distant, but surrounded by threats, including treacherous seas, monstrous creatures, and the wrath of hostile gods. Jason knew that their success would not simply depend on their strength or abilities, but on their ability to work as a cohesive team and to face every challenge head-on. In addition to preparing the ship and gathering supplies, Jason also had to plan their route carefully. The journey to Colchis involved navigating through unfamiliar lands, and each step was filled with the unknown. It was a journey not just of distance, but also of time, requiring the crew to rely on one another and use their skills to overcome the numerous obstacles they would face. While Jason led the preparation, he also recognized the importance of leadership and the need to inspire confidence in his companions. The Argonauts were not just heroes in their own right, they were also the best of their time. It was critical that Jason foster a sense of unity and purpose. He knew that a lack of cooperation could tear the group apart, and that only through collaboration would they stand a chance of completing the mission. With the ship ready, the crew assembled, and provisions secured, it was time for the Argonauts to set sail. The journey began from the kingdom of Iolcos, Jason's homeland, but their path was far from clear or safe. The seas they sailed on were known for being treacherous, and they faced dangers both natural and supernatural from the very start. One of the first challenges the Argonauts encountered was the Symplegades, or clashing rocks, two massive rocks that constantly moved, crashing into one another and smashing anything in their path. These rocks were said to be sentient and guarded by the gods, making them even more dangerous to anyone who dared to pass through. The Symplegades were a natural hazard, one that seemed impossible to navigate without immense skill and luck. As the Argonauts approached the rocks, they knew that they had to act quickly and with precision. The tension among the crew was palpable. The fear that they might not survive their first challenge hung over them. Jason, as the leader, had to keep calm and make quick decisions. Orpheus, with his musical talents, helped to calm the nerves of the crew and keep their spirits high, playing his lyre to uplift their morale. At the critical moment, Jason followed the advice of Phineus, a blind prophet who had foreseen the journey, and he released a dove to fly between the rocks. If the dove survived, the crew would know they could make it through safely. The dove flew through the gap, and with the Argonauts following its path, they managed to navigate the dangerous rocks. However, during the process, the rocks nearly crushed the ship, and only the skillful sailing of Tiphys, the ship's helmsman, prevented disaster. The Argonauts passed through the Symplegades, but the encounter served as a stark reminder of the perils they would face on their journey. Despite their success, the beginning of the journey was marked by the realization that there would be no easy victories. The Symplegades were only the first in a series of increasingly difficult challenges. As the Argonauts sailed onward, they encountered not only the hazards of the sea, but the very real danger of the gods' wrath. The gods, it seemed, were watching them, and the crew was constantly at risk of divine punishment. While some gods like Athena and Hera aided the Argonauts, others like Poseidon tested their strength and resolve. The journey was not only dangerous, but exhausting. Long days at sea, combined with the constant threat of attack from both natural and supernatural forces, took a toll on the Argonauts. But through it all, they learned valuable lessons about the importance of teamwork, the significance of faith in one another, and the need for strategic thinking and decisive leadership. From the moment they set sail, Jason and his companions learned some crucial lessons that would shape the rest of their journey. These lessons were not just practical, but deeply philosophical, teaching them about the nature of heroism, leadership, and unity. The first major lesson was that the success of the mission would depend on cooperation. While each Argonaut was a hero in their own right, none could have succeeded on their own. The Symplegades incident, where Jason relied on the advice of Phineus and the bravery of the crew, demonstrated that even in the face of adversity, the Argonauts could succeed only through collective effort. Each member of the crew had a role to play, and their shared purpose was what allowed them to survive the dangers they encountered. Jason's leadership skills were also tested here. It wasn't enough for him to simply give orders. He had to inspire his crew, foster trust, and maintain their spirits through the early trials. The bond between Jason and the Argonauts grew stronger with each challenge they faced, showing that true leadership comes not just from commanding respect, but from earning it through actions and sacrifice. Another important lesson was the value of wisdom and strategy. It wasn't just strength that the Argonauts needed to survive, they also needed to think critically about the dangers they faced. In the case of the Symplegades, Jason's quick thinking and the wisdom of Phineus saved the crew. Relying on intelligence and foresight proved just as important as physical strength in the dangerous world they navigated. This lesson would continue to be essential as they faced monsters, hostile kingdoms, and the mysterious challenges laid before them by the gods. Jason learned to rely on the counsel of the wise like Orpheus and Phineus to make informed decisions. He also saw the value of seeking help from others, reinforcing that even a hero cannot succeed alone. Lastly, the journey reminded Jason and the Argonauts that the road ahead was uncertain. Even with their strength and unity, they were at the mercy of the gods, whose favor and wrath could change at any moment. This uncertainty taught Jason and his companions to stay humble, to recognize the role of fate in their lives, and to be prepared for the unexpected. The Argonauts would need more than just courage. They would need the ability to adapt to the ever-changing nature of their quest. The journey of the Argonauts was just beginning, but the lessons they learned early on would prove essential in the trials ahead. They had faced their first significant challenge and had learned the value of teamwork, wisdom, and humility in the face of divine and earthly obstacles. The challenges ahead would only grow more difficult, but the Argonauts were now united by a common purpose and a deep understanding of what it would take to succeed. As they sailed deeper into the unknown, the lessons of the early journey would guide them, shaping their destiny and strengthening the bonds of friendship that would carry them through the trials of their epic quest for the Golden Fleece. The Argonauts began their journey in earnest, setting sail from Iolcos and embarking on a perilous quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece. They encountered their first major obstacle, the Symplegades, or clashing rocks, and learned vital lessons about unity, wisdom, and the ever-present uncertainty of fate. However, the journey was far from over, and the seas they had to traverse were fraught with dangers that would test their physical strength, resolve, and courage. In this section, we will explore the various challenges the Argonauts faced as they sailed through treacherous waters, including natural obstacles, attacks by pirates, and the strains these challenges placed on the hero's collective spirit. These trials not only tested the group's abilities, but also pushed them to the limit in their pursuit of the Golden Fleece. The open seas are often a metaphor for the unknown, vast, unpredictable, and full of potential dangers. For the Argonauts, their journey was no exception as they sailed through perilous waters and faced various natural hazards that made the quest for the Golden Fleece a test of both courage and survival. In addition to the Symplegades, the crew was confronted with other treacherous seas, and the weather itself became an adversary they could not ignore. After navigating the Symplegades, the Argonauts found themselves on the Bosporus, an area known for its rough seas, turbulent winds, and unpredictable tides. The Bosporus was an expanse of water separating the Aegean Sea from the Black Sea, and while it wasn't as deadly as the Symplegades, it presented its own set of dangers. Powerful currents and fierce winds made sailing through these waters a challenge, and the Argonauts had to rely on Tiphys the helmsman to carefully steer the ship through these uncertain and turbulent conditions. One of the critical lessons learned on these treacherous seas was the importance of navigation. The Argonauts quickly realized that their journey was not only a test of their strength, but also one of intelligence, requiring them to read the seas and understand how to anticipate and avoid potential hazards. The unpredictable nature of the waters reinforced the idea that success would come not only from bravery, but also from thoughtfulness and strategic planning. As if the natural dangers weren't enough, the Argonauts also had to contend with the whims of the gods. On several occasions during the journey, the gods tested the Argonauts' mettle by sending powerful storms and winds to delay or thwart their progress. Zeus in particular sent a violent storm while the Argonauts were sailing along the coast of Thrace. The storm, which came unexpectedly, forced the crew to struggle against powerful waves and a fierce downpour that threatened to capsize the Argo. Jason once again had to step forward as the leader and encourage his companions to push through their fears. He called upon the gods for help, and Athena, who had watched over the Argonauts, intervened to calm the storm and help them navigate through the rough seas. This event highlighted the dual nature of the Argonauts' struggle. They had to contend with not only natural dangers, but also the influence of the divine, which could both help and hinder their journey. In the face of these storms, the Argonauts learned to trust in the will of the gods, while also taking practical steps to protect themselves from the unpredictable forces of nature. They could not rely solely on their physical strength or skills as sailors. They needed to accept that some aspects of their journey were beyond their control and required faith, not just action. As the Argonauts sailed further into unknown waters, they encountered another peril, the threat of pirates. These pirates were notorious for preying on ships traveling through the seas, seeking to plunder their cargo and loot. When the Argonauts found themselves under attack by a group of pirates, the situation became an intense test of their bravery and ability to act quickly. The first pirate confrontation came when the Argonauts encountered a band of ruthless pirates near the shores of Macedonia. The pirates, sensing an opportunity to strike against such a well-known ship, attempted to board the Argo and take the crew captive. At this point in the journey, the Argonauts had already proven their physical strength and resilience, but the pirate attack presented an entirely different kind of challenge, one that tested their ability to respond quickly and think strategically. As the pirates attempted to board the Argo, Heracles took the lead in defending the ship. With his immense strength and legendary skill in battle, he quickly drove the pirates back, ensuring that no harm came to the crew. However, the confrontation was not without its cost. In the battle, Heracles displayed his usual impulsiveness, leading to some tension within the group. Although his strength and combat abilities were invaluable, his rashness would become a source of conflict later on. After the battle, the Argonauts realized that they could not afford to be complacent in these waters. Pirates were just one of the many threats they would have to face as they continued their journey. They had learned the importance of vigilance and preparedness, understanding that the sea was full of dangers, both visible and hidden. As a result, the Argonauts became more cautious and aware of their surroundings, always ready for the next possible attack. Beyond pirates, the Argonauts also faced the threat of sea monsters, creatures that had been sent by the gods or were part of the natural world's monstrous inhabitants. One of the most famous encounters was with the Charybdis and Scylla, two deadly sea monsters that threatened to tear the Argo apart as it sailed through the dangerous waters near the Strait of Messina. The monsters, one, a massive whirlpool; Charybdis, and the other, a terrifying multi-headed creature. Scylla were among the most terrifying creatures in Greek mythology. In this encounter, the Argonauts were forced to act decisively. Jason had to rely on the expertise of his crew to figure out the best course of action. Orpheus, whose music could calm even the most savage creatures, played a soothing melody to help ease the ship through the danger. At the same time, Heracles and Atalanta took on the responsibility of defending the ship from any attack, using their combat prowess to fend off any immediate threats. The sea monsters represented a lesson that Jason and the Argonauts had to learn over and over again. Bravery alone was not enough to succeed in the journey. It was a combination of skills, wisdom, and teamwork that would allow them to navigate the obstacles that nature and the gods threw in their path. Beyond the physical dangers of the sea, the Argonauts' journey was also a test of their mental endurance. The constant threat of attack, coupled with the severe hardships they faced on the water, tested not only their physical strength, but also their patience and resolve. As the days stretched into weeks and months, the Argonauts began to face fatigue and doubt. After weeks of sailing through turbulent waters and surviving numerous attacks, the Argonauts began to feel the strain of their quest. The long journey took its toll on their spirits, and some members of the crew began to question whether the Golden Fleece was worth the cost. The monotony of life on the ship, coupled with the ever-present dangers they faced, created a sense of frustration among some of the Argonauts. Jason, as their leader, had to keep the group focused. His leadership was not just about giving orders, but about motivating and encouraging his companions. He understood that the crew was not just a collection of warriors and heroes. They were individuals with their own fears, doubts, and emotions. Keeping them united and committed to the mission required not only strategic thinking, but also empathy and emotional intelligence. One of the key lessons learned from these trials was the importance of patience. As the Argonauts faced one trial after another, they learned that success was not always immediate. Sometimes they had to wait for the right moment to act. Sometimes they had to trust that their perseverance would eventually pay off, even when the odds seemed impossible. The journey tested not just their physical courage, but also their mental fortitude. They learned that to achieve their goal, they would need more than just bravery. They needed the ability to stay calm under pressure, to trust one another, and to keep moving forward even when the outcome seemed uncertain. The trials at sea were some of the most formative experiences for Jason and the Argonauts. They faced numerous natural obstacles, pirates and monsters, all of which tested their bravery, strength, and resolve. But the journey also taught them invaluable lessons about teamwork, patience, and leadership. These early experiences proved that success in their quest for the Golden Fleece would not come from physical prowess alone. Instead, it would require a combination of courage, wisdom, and perseverance to overcome the challenges ahead. As the Argonauts continued their journey, they became stronger not just as individuals, but as a united group. Their trials at sea, though difficult and dangerous, laid the foundation for the challenges they would face on land, proving that the strength of the crew lay in their ability to endure together. With every obstacle they overcame, they grew closer to their goal and to each other. After Argonauts sailed through treacherous seas, facing numerous natural obstacles, pirates, and monstrous creatures that tested their resolve and unity. The journey had already proven to be a harsh trial for the heroes, but one of the most daunting challenges they would face lay ahead: the perilous Symplegades, or the clashing rocks. These moving islands, legendary for their deadly reputation, would prove to be a test of the Argonauts' strength, skill, and teamwork. In this section, we will delve into the nature of the Symplegades, the role of each hero in overcoming this immense obstacle, and the crucial lessons they learned from the experience. The Symplegades, also known as the Clashing Rocks, were one of the most infamous and dangerous natural phenomena in Greek mythology. These two massive, towering rocks were situated at the entrance to the Bosporus Strait, a narrow waterway that connected the Aegean Sea to the Black Sea. According to myth, the Symplegades were cursed and sent by the gods to prevent any ships from passing through this treacherous area. The rocks were not stationary. They were alive and constantly moving, crashing into each other with violent force. Any ship that tried to navigate through the narrow gap between the rocks would inevitably be crushed between them. Over time, these rocks had gained a fearsome reputation, and many sailors who attempted to pass through the strait were never heard from again, their ships destroyed by the relentless crushing collision of the Symplegades. In addition to their physical dangers, the Symplegades were also associated with divine punishment. According to legend, the rocks were sent by the gods as a test of both strength and skill, challenging sailors to prove their worth by navigating the impossible passage. The very nature of the rocks, unpredictable, dangerous, and seemingly insurmountable, created a sense of hopelessness in the hearts of those who sought to pass through. It was an obstacle that seemed to offer no solution, no escape, no way through. For the Argonauts, the Symplegades were not just another obstacle in their journey, they were a seemingly insurmountable test. One that would require not only courage and strength, but also the ability to think quickly, work together, and act with precision. Passing through the Symplegades would demand unity, strategic planning, and the courage to face the impossible head-on. The Argonauts knew that navigating the Symplegades was no simple feat. The rocks moved with such force that there was no chance of passing through without risking their lives. In addition, the gods had set the rocks in place, making it impossible to simply brute force a way through. Jason, as the leader, knew that his role was to inspire confidence in his crew and lead them through this dangerous test. However, he also understood that physical strength alone would not be enough to overcome the threat posed by the Symplegades. The Argonauts needed a strategy. After consulting with Phineus, the blind prophet who had been guiding them on their journey, Jason learned that there was a way to pass through the clashing rocks safely. Phineus shared his insight, advising the Argonauts to release a dove into the gap between the rocks. If the dove managed to pass through unscathed, the Argonauts would know that it was possible to follow its path. If the dove was caught, the crew would have to find another way. The decision was made to act on Phineus's advice. Orpheus, the legendary musician, played a key role in lifting the spirits of the Argonauts during this tense moment. His music had a calming effect on the crew, and his soothing melodies helped keep them focused and calm in the face of the imminent danger. With the crew ready, Jason instructed them to release the dove. As the dove flew through the gap between the rocks, the Argonauts held their breath. The birds managed to pass through the gap, but just barely one of its wings was clipped by the rocks. This narrow escape was a clear sign that they could make it through, but only if they acted quickly. Once the dove made it through, Jason gave the command to sail as quickly as possible through the gap. The crew began rowing with all their might, pushing the Argo forward as the rocks loomed ahead. The Argonauts, relying on their collective strength and skill, worked together with precision. The helmsman Typhus guided the ship with expert control, using the ship's momentum to steer them toward the narrow gap between the moving rocks. It was a test of not just physical strength, but also dexterity and timing. As the Argo approached the rocks, the clashing rocks began to move toward one another, creating a terrifying and seemingly impossible challenge. Just as the ship was about to enter the gap, the rocks began to close, threatening to crush the vessel. But the Argonauts had only a split second to act, Jason Typhus, and the rest of the crew knew they had to act quickly and with precision. Every stroke of the oars counted, and every movement had to be timed perfectly. At the last possible moment, the Argo darted through the gap. The crew worked together, pushing the ship forward with all their might, and just as the rocks were about to collide, they narrowly escaped sailing safely through the Symplegades. The rocks crashed together behind them with a deafening roar, but the Argonauts were unharmed. They had survived the impossible. While Jason provided the leadership necessary to guide the Argonauts through the clashing rocks, the successful passage of the Symplegades was also a testament to the skills, bravery, and dedication of the entire crew. The teamwork displayed by the Argonauts in navigating the dangerous gap was nothing short of extraordinary, and each hero contributed in a unique way. As the leader of the Argonauts, Jason's role in overcoming the Symplegades was pivotal. He was the one who coordinated the crew, keeping them focused and united as they faced this monumental challenge. He listened to the advice of Phineus, used his intellect to make the crucial decision to release the dove, and ensured that the crew was ready to act at the right moment. Jason's leadership was not just about giving orders, it was about making decisions based on wisdom and collective input. His calm demeanor and ability to remain composed in the face of danger allowed him to make sound decisions and keep the crew's morale high. This sense of calm was vital, as any panic could have led to the disaster of being caught between the rocks. Jason's leadership ultimately ensured that the Argonauts were able to act decisively and in harmony. While Jason's strategic leadership was crucial, the helmsman Typhus played a critical role in guiding the ship through the Symplegades. Typhus was not only an expert sailor, but also someone who understood the physical dynamics of sailing through dangerous waters. His quick reflexes and precise control over the ship's movements were essential in navigating the narrow gap between the closing rocks. Without Typhus's skill in controlling the Argo's course, the ship could have easily been crushed by the rocks. Typhus's role was a reminder of the importance of specialized expertise. While the strength of the Argonauts was valuable, the experience and talent of individuals like Typhus were just as important to ensuring their success. Another hero whose contribution was vital during the Symplegades incident was Orpheus, the legendary musician. Orpheus's ability to play music that soothed the soul became particularly valuable in moments of extreme tension, like during the passage through the Symplegades. His melodies had the power to calm the hearts and minds of the Argonauts, allowing them to remain focused and composed even as they faced the crushing danger of the rocks. Orpheus's music also had a magical quality capable of pacifying even the wildest forces of nature. His calming influence not only inspired the crew, but helped to counter the fear and panic that might have otherwise taken hold of the group. Through Orpheus's contribution, the crew was able to stay mentally focused, a crucial factor in overcoming the trial. While Orpheus and Tiphys played instrumental roles, Heracles, Atalanta, and the other warriors of the group contributed their strength, courage, and determination to ensure the Argonauts' safe passage. Heracles in particular was known for his physical strength and was ready to defend the ship against any external threats. Though the Symplegades themselves didn't require brute force, Heracles' presence reinforced the sense of security among the crew. Atalanta, the skilled hunter, also provided invaluable support in maintaining the focus and drive of the crew. Her presence reminded the others that this quest was not only about overcoming physical challenges, but also about mental resilience and unity. The Argonauts' passage through the Symplegades was a monumental achievement in their quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece. It was not just a test of physical strength, but of unity, strategic planning, and bravery. By combining their individual talents and working together as a cohesive team, the Argonauts were able to overcome one of the most dangerous obstacles in Greek mythology. The trial also demonstrated the importance of leadership wisdom and the ability to stay calm under pressure. Jason's leadership, Tiphys's expertise, Orpheus's calming music, and the bravery of the warriors all played a part in ensuring that the Argonauts were able to navigate the clashing rocks and survive to face the trials ahead. The successful passage through the Symplegades set the stage for the challenges still to come, but it also underscored the value of collaboration and resilience in the face of adversity. With each trial they overcame, the Argonauts grew stronger, and their bond as a team deepened essential qualities for the arduous journey ahead. After surviving the perilous passage through the Symplegades and overcoming the numerous challenges of the journey, the Argonauts finally approached their destination, the kingdom of Colchis, the home of the legendary Golden Fleece. The fleece, an object of immense power and importance, had been guarded for generations, and its retrieval would not be easy. Colchis, a mysterious and distant land on the shores of the Black Sea, was ruled by the powerful and enigmatic King Aeetes. In this section, we will explore the kingdom of Colchis, the challenges Jason and his crew face as they seek the Golden Fleece, and their first encounter with King Aeetes, the formidable protector of the fleece. Colchis, located in the ancient region around the modern-day country of Georgia, was a kingdom steeped in mystery, known for its wild landscapes, treacherous terrain, and powerful magic. The kingdom was situated at the farthest reaches of the known world, and its people were said to possess great knowledge of the occult and the arcane. Colchis was a land that seemed to exist on the border between the mortal world and the mystical realms, and its reputation was one of both awe and fear. At the heart of Colchis lay the sacred grove where the Golden Fleece was kept. The fleece itself was hung in the branches of a magnificent oak tree, which was protected by a fierce, never-sleeping dragon. This was no ordinary tree. It was said to have been blessed by the gods themselves, and the Golden Fleece, made from the wool of a magical ram, was a symbol of the divine and a talisman of unimaginable power. The fleece had been given to the people of Colchis as a divine gift, and it had remained under their protection ever since. To possess the Golden Fleece was to hold the power of kingship, divine favor, and unrivaled strength. For Jason and the Argonauts, reaching Colchis was the culmination of their long and perilous journey. However, they knew that retrieving the fleece would not be as simple as sailing into the kingdom and taking it. The fleece was a sacred object, and its protection was a task of immense importance to the people of Colchis. As Jason and his crew approached the shores, they were not just entering a foreign land, they were entering a place where divine forces and mortal rulers intertwined, and where even the gods might intervene in their quest. As Jason and the Argonauts sailed into Colchis, they were greeted with the imposing presence of King Aeetes, the ruler of the kingdom. Aeetes, a powerful and regal figure, was a son of the sun god, Helios, and the ocean goddess Hecate, making him both divinely descended and extraordinarily powerful. His rule over Colchis was marked by both benevolence and ruthlessness, and his authority was absolute. As the protector of the Golden Fleece, Aeetes saw the fleece not only as a symbol of his kingdom's prosperity, but also as a divine mandate that connected him directly to the gods. The fleece was not just a royal artifact, it was a manifestation of his divine right to rule. Upon their arrival, Jason and his companions were greeted by the king and his royal court, which they requested the Golden Fleece as the prize for their journey. However, King Aeetes, wise and shrewd, immediately understood the significance of their mission. He knew that Jason was the rightful heir to the throne of Iolcos, and that his quest was not just about retrieving an object, it was a challenge to his own power. Aeetes, in his regal and cunning manner, did not simply hand over the Golden Fleece. Instead, he set forth a series of impossible tasks that Jason and the Argonauts would have to complete if they wished to claim the fleece. This decision was not just a test of strength, it was a test of Jason's leadership, intelligence, and divine favor. Aeetes did not want to give up the fleece easily, especially to someone who might be seen as a threat to his own throne. In addition to the high stakes of retrieving the fleece, Aeetes' decision was influenced by the fact that he had a daughter, Medea, who would soon play a pivotal role in the fate of the Argonauts. Medea, a powerful sorceress, had been instructed by the gods to help Jason on his quest, and it was through her magic and divine intervention that Jason would stand any chance of completing the trials set before him. King Aeetes' response to Jason's request for the Golden Fleece was both a challenge and a trap. He presented Jason with a set of impossible tasks, each designed to test the hero's courage, skill, and resourcefulness. The tasks were not only difficult, but dangerous, and failure would mean death or dishonor for the entire crew. The first of Aeetes' tasks was to yoke two fire-breathing bulls creatures so fierce that no man had ever dared to approach them. These bulls were not ordinary animals. They were creatures of divine origin, capable of breathing fire and possessing immense strength. Their task was to plow a field, and Jason was expected to yoke them without being killed. Jason, though daunted by the challenge, prepared himself for the task. Medea, who had fallen in love with Jason at first sight, played a crucial role in helping him. With the help of her magic and potions, Medea enchanted the bulls, making them docile enough for Jason to control. Despite the bulls' immense power, Jason was able to yoke them and begin plowing the field, a feat that would have been impossible without Medea's assistance. This task not only tested Jason's strength and skill, but also proved that his success was intimately tied to the support of his companions and the divine aid that he had received. The second task required Jason to sow the dragon's teeth in the plowed field, a task that would bring forth a crop of warriors, each armed and ready to fight. These warriors, called Spartoi, would spring from the ground and attempt to kill Jason. It was a dangerous and seemingly insurmountable task designed to test not only Jason's courage, but also his ability to outwit his enemies. Once again, Medea played a critical role. She instructed Jason on how to deal with Spartoi. She told him that he must throw a stone among the warriors, causing them to fight one another instead of attacking him. Jason, using this clever tactic, was able to survive the attack of the Spartoi and defeat them, proving his ability to think strategically under pressure. This task demonstrated that Jason was not just a hero of strength, but also of wit and resourcefulness. After successfully completing the tasks set by King Aeetes, Jason was finally allowed to approach the Golden Fleece, which hung in the sacred grove guarded by the dragon that never slept. The task of retrieving the fleece, however, was not over. The dragon, a fearsome creature with scales as hard as iron, would not allow anyone to approach the fleece without a fight. Jason, weakened by the trials he had already undergone, knew that this final challenge would be the most difficult. It was then that Medea's help became absolutely vital. As a sorceress of immense power, she was able to use her magic to put the dragon into a deep sleep, allowing Jason to sneak past the creature and seize the Golden Fleece. This final act of courage and magic secured the fleece, but it was also a reminder that no hero could succeed alone. Even Jason, with all his strength and skill, needed the aid of others, especially the gods, and those with knowledge beyond mortal comprehension. Jason and the Argonauts had successfully retrieved the Golden Fleece, but their victory was not without consequences. King Aeetes, though he had set the tasks to test Jason, would not take the loss of the fleece lightly. The events that followed would test not only the Argonauts' strength, but also their loyalty, resourcefulness, and the fate of those they left behind. The kingdom of Colchis had been the final stop on Jason's long journey, and while the Argonauts had accomplished their mission, their time in Colchis had only just begun. With the Golden Fleece in their possession, they were about to face new challenges, ones that would determine whether their victory would last or whether they would be caught in the web of fate once again. As Jason and his crew prepared to leave Colchis, they could not know what lay ahead. But for now, they had succeeded in their most difficult trial, and the road to Iolcos and the final confrontation with Perilous was now within their grasp. After successfully reaching Colchis and confronting the challenges set by King Aeetes, Jason and the Argonauts were on the verge of achieving their goal, the retrieval of the Golden Fleece. However, their victory was not solely due to their strength, courage, or strategy. At the heart of their success was Medea, the powerful sorceress and daughter of King Aeetes, who played a pivotal role in helping Jason overcome the trials that lay before him. Medea's knowledge of magic, combined with her deep feelings for Jason, made her a key figure in the Argonauts' journey. In this section, we will explore Medea's background, the critical role she played in helping Jason succeed, and the complicated and intense relationship that developed between her and Jason, one that would ultimately shape both their destinies. Medea, a princess of Colchis and the daughter of King Aeetes, was no ordinary woman in Greek mythology. Her parentage alone marked her as a figure of great power. Aeetes, her father, was a formidable ruler and a sorcerer descended from the gods, Helios and Hecate. As the heir to this divine bloodline, Medea inherited an extraordinary connection to magic and the occult. She was not just a beautiful and intelligent woman. She was a sorceress whose powers rivaled those of the greatest gods and goddesses. Medea's magical abilities were vast and varied. She had learned the arts of herbalism, potions, and necromancy under the tutelage of her father and the influence of Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft and magic. Medea's gifts were not simply in casting spells or concocting potions, but also in her understanding of the natural world and the forces that governed life and death. She had the ability to control the elements, manipulate the fates of others, and even turn back the hands of time with her spells. However, Medea's connection to her father and her homeland was complicated. While she had immense loyalty to her family, her deep sense of duty and honor also made her susceptible to the desires and whims of others. Her encounter with Jason, a stranger in need of her assistance, would change the course of her life forever. When Jason arrived in Colchis, he was faced with a series of near-impossible tasks that King Aeetes had set before him in exchange for the Golden Fleece. These trials included yoking fire-breathing bulls, plowing a field, and dealing with the dragon's teeth. Without the assistance of Medea, Jason and the Argonauts would likely have failed in these tasks, as the challenges were not only physically demanding, but also involved supernatural elements that no mere mortal could overcome on their own. The relationship between Jason and Medea was not one of simple affection. It was a complicated, tragic, and fateful bond that would shape both their lives in ways they could never have imagined. Medea's love for Jason was immediate and unquestioning, a love that drove her to help him despite the consequences for her own family and kingdom. Jason, too, came to love Medea, though his feelings were often influenced by the circumstances of their mission rather than pure emotional attachment. The love between them was rooted in destiny. When Medea first laid eyes on Jason, she was immediately struck by his noble bearing and courage, and she knew in some deep instinctual way that she was meant to help him. Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece aligned with her own inner longing for freedom and escape from the constraints of her father's rule. Medea's decision to help Jason was not a simple act of kindness. It was an act of rebellion against her father, King Aeetes, who had always expected her to obey him and follow his will without question. By helping Jason, Medea defied her family, and in some ways her own identity as a princess of Colchis. In choosing to aid Jason, Medea was embracing a new life, one that would involve both immense love and tragic consequences. For Jason, Medea's help was invaluable, but his feelings for her were more complex. Jason had been raised with a sense of duty to reclaim his throne from Perilous, and while he grew fond of Medea, his primary goal was always the Golden Fleece and the restoration of his birthright. This pragmatic view of their relationship would later become a source of tension between them. Despite their differences, Jason and Medea became inseparable. Medea's love for Jason was boundless. She sacrificed her home family and kingdom for him, a decision that would come to haunt both of them. Her love was not only passionate, but also self-sacrificial. She was willing to give up everything for Jason's success, and her loyalty to him would define her actions for years to come. The love between Jason and Medea would ultimately lead to a tragic and complicated legacy. While Medea's assistance in the retrieval of the Golden Fleece ensured Jason's success, their relationship soon became fraught with conflict. Jason, having achieved his goal and regained his throne, began to lose interest in Medea, and his affection for her diminished. Jason's political ambition led him to marry Creusa, the daughter of King Creon of Corinth, in order to secure his position as a ruler. Medea, devastated by Jason's betrayal, would later take drastic actions that would alter the course of both their lives. The woman who had helped Jason fulfill his destiny would be pushed to the edge of madness, driven by revenge and the pain of being abandoned. The tragedy of Jason and Medea is one of the most poignant in Greek mythology, illustrating the destructive power of unrequited love, betrayal, and divine retribution. Medea's deep feelings for Jason were never truly reciprocated, and the consequences of their relationship would leave a trail of devastation that would follow them both for the rest of their lives. The love between Jason and Medea was one of the most complex and dramatic relationships in Greek mythology. Medea's extraordinary magical powers, combined with her deep devotion to Jason, made her an invaluable ally in his quest for the Golden Fleece. Yet their bond was fraught with tragic irony. Medea's love for Jason, while pure and selfless, was ultimately unreturned in the way she had hoped. Their relationship was marked by sacrifice, betrayal, and ultimately revenge, and it remains one of the most powerful stories of love and loss in ancient myth. Medea's role in the quest for the Golden Fleece was crucial to the success of the Argonauts, but her love for Jason would lead to a dark and irreversible series of events. The story of Medea and Jason is a timeless reminder of the complexities of human relationships, the cost of ambition, and the devastating consequences of betrayal. After completing the impossible tasks set by King Aeetes and earning his approval, Jason and the Argonauts were finally within reach of their ultimate goal, the Golden Fleece. However, the final barrier between them and the fleece was a formidable one, a terrifying dragon that guarded the sacred grove where the fleece was hung. This dragon, unlike any ordinary creature, had been placed there by the gods to prevent anyone from claiming the fleece. With the help of Medea, the sorceress, who had already played a pivotal role in the quest, Jason would face the ultimate test. In this section, we will explore the nature of the dragon, how Medea used her magic to subdue it, and the final triumphant moment when the Golden Fleece was finally within their grasp. The dragon that guarded the Golden Fleece in the sacred grove of Colchis was a creature of unimaginable power and terror. Unlike the typical monsters Jason and the Argonauts had encountered, this dragon was not merely a physical challenge. It was a divine guardian placed there by the gods to ensure that only the most worthy could claim the fleece. The dragon's task was to protect the fleece from mortal hands, making it virtually impossible for anyone to reach the treasure. This dragon, often described as huge and ferocious, had scales that were like iron armor and eyes that blazed with fire. It was said to never sleep, making it an even greater threat, as it could strike at any moment if someone dared approach the fleece. The creature was sacred, and its presence imbued the grove with an otherworldly energy that made it a place where few dared to tread. Its terrifying roar could shake the ground, and its venomous breath could melt metal. This dragon, unlike any ordinary beast, was both a physical and symbolic representation of the great power that the fleece held. The dragon's role was not only to protect the fleece physically, but also to act as the final test of worthiness. Only those who were truly favored by the gods and capable of overcoming the supernatural forces at play could defeat the dragon and claim the fleece. Jason knew that even though he had completed the earlier trials set by Aeetes, the dragon would not be so easily defeated. With his strength alone, he could not hope to conquer the creature. That was where Medea would come into play. As Jason and the Argonauts approached the sacred grove where the Golden Fleece was kept, they saw the dragon lying coiled around the tree, its fiery eyes watching them with an almost supernatural awareness. The dragon's presence was overwhelming, and Jason knew that defeating it would require more than just physical might. He had already seen how great the power of Medea's magic was during the earlier tasks, and it was now time for her to help him once more. Medea, who had already fallen deeply in love with Jason, was prepared to do whatever it took to ensure his success. She had already defied her father, King Aeetes, to help Jason reclaim the fleece, and now she was ready to use all of her magical abilities to overcome the final challenge. Medea knew the dragon's one weakness, despite its terrifying nature. The dragon could be subdued if one could find the right magical means. Medea's first step was to prepare a magical potion, a brew so powerful that it could induce deep sleep in even the most fearsome of creatures. With her extensive knowledge of herbs and potions, she carefully crafted the mixture using ingredients that had been passed down through the generations of sorceresses in her family. Once the potion was ready, Medea waited for the perfect moment to strike. When Jason approached the dragon's lair, he had no hope of defeating the creature by force alone. Medea cast a spell to send a wave of sleep-inducing magic over the dragon. As she did so, she whispered ancient incantations using her voice to carry the power of the spell. Slowly, the dragon's intense gaze began to soften, and its once violent movements grew slower. Its massive head started to droop, and its breathing became heavier and more labored. In the span of just a few minutes, the dragon was fast asleep, its body still coiled protectively around the Golden Fleece. The once imposing creature, which had seemed like an insurmountable barrier, was now utterly helpless. It was a magical victory, one that only Medea's knowledge of sorcery could have achieved. The dragon was subdued, and Jason, guided by Medea, was free to approach the fleece without fear of attack. With the dragon asleep, Jason and the Argonauts were finally able to approach the Golden Fleece, the ultimate prize of their long and perilous journey. The fleece hung from a magnificent oak tree, glowing with a golden light that seemed to pulse with divine energy. As Jason laid his hands on the fleece, the feeling of accomplishment and triumph washed over him. After so many trials, endless struggles against monsters, impossible tasks, and the wrath of the gods, he had finally achieved his goal. The Golden Fleece was not just a physical object. It was a symbol of divine favor and rightful kingship. By claiming the fleece, Jason was not just fulfilling a personal mission, but also restoring his birthright and asserting his rightful place as the ruler of Iolcos. Yet this victory came at a cost. Medea had helped him not just by casting powerful spells, but by offering a love that was deep, pure, and self-sacrificial. Her actions had ensured his success, but she would pay a high price for her loyalty and affection. With the fleece in hand, the Argonauts celebrated their victory, but they knew their journey was far from over. Though they had triumphed over the dragon and claimed the Golden Fleece, they would soon face even greater challenges on their return journey. The gods, fickle and unpredictable, would not allow their success to go unchallenged. But for now they stood victorious, the fleece shining in their grasp, the fulfillment of their greatest quest within their reach. The defeat of the dragon and the retrieval of the Golden Fleece marked the culmination of Jason's epic journey, but it also symbolized something deeper. The dragon, as a creature of divine power, represented the final test of Jason's ability to rise above the challenges laid before him. It was not merely a battle of strength, but a test of his leadership, wisdom, and unity with his companions. The dragon could not have been defeated by physical strength alone. It required the magic of Medea, the intelligence of Jason, and the cooperation of the entire Argonaut crew. The fleece itself was not just a treasure. It was a divine object tied to the very identity of kingship and the god's will. Its power was linked to the legitimacy of rule, and it symbolized the divine approval needed to lead a kingdom. By retrieving the fleece, Jason was not only claiming the throne of Iolcos, but he was also receiving the god's blessing, though the price for this blessing would later prove to be high. For Medea, the retrieval of the fleece was both a victory and a loss. Her love for Jason was powerful enough to drive her to help him at any cost, but in the end, it was her self-sacrifice that allowed Jason to succeed. Though the victory was Jason's, Medea's role in the journey cannot be understated. Without her magic wisdom and love, Jason's quest would have been impossible. The defeat of the dragon and the retrieval of the Golden Fleece marked the final victory in Jason's quest, but it also set the stage for the tragedy that would follow. Jason had succeeded in reclaiming his birthright, but the cost of his success was greater than he could have imagined. Medea, the woman who had sacrificed everything for him, would soon be betrayed, and the consequences of that betrayal would haunt both Jason and Medea for the rest of their lives. For the Argonauts, the journey had been one of both triumph and sacrifice. The Golden Fleece was a symbol of victory, but it also represented the dangers of unchecked ambition and the high price of divine favor, as Jason and his crew sailed back toward Iolcos. Their minds would be filled not only with thoughts of their triumph, but with the knowledge that the true cost of their success had yet to unfold. With the Golden Fleece in hand and the monumental task of retrieving it completed, Jason and the Argonauts should have been able to relax and celebrate their victory. However, their triumph over King Aeetes and the challenges in Colchis came at a price. While they had successfully overcome the dragon and the dangerous trials in the sacred grove, their journey was far from over. King Aeetes, unwilling to lose the precious fleece and enraged by the theft, soon set out with his forces to pursue the Argonauts and reclaim what he considered rightfully his. In this section, we will explore the pursuit by King Aeetes, the numerous obstacles the Argonauts faced on their way home, and the vital role Medea played in helping them navigate these dangers. After Jason and the Argonauts had successfully secured the Golden Fleece, they set sail back to Iolcos with the hope of returning home as victors. However, their success was short-lived. King Aeetes, furious that his precious fleece had been taken, was not going to let the Argonauts escape so easily. The anger of a king, especially one as powerful and proud as Aeetes, was not something to be underestimated. His wrath would drive him to pursue the Argonauts relentlessly. As soon as Aeetes discovered that the fleece was gone, he sent out his army to track down Jason and the crew. Aeetes' pursuit was not only about revenge, it was also about maintaining his honor and authority. The Golden Fleece represented his rightful power as king, and he could not allow a foreign group of adventurers to steal it and escape unpunished. Aeetes' forces were vast and formidable, and they pursued the Argonauts across the seas. The tension between the Argonauts and Aeetes' army mounted as the chase stretched on. The Argonauts, though skilled and heroic, were now on the defensive, desperately trying to outrun the Colchian fleet. The relentless pursuit created a sense of urgency for the Argonauts as they had to evade capture while navigating treacherous waters and dealing with the lingering dangers of their earlier encounters. While the pursuit of Aeetes and his army was one of the most immediate dangers the Argonauts faced, their journey back to Iolcos was fraught with numerous other challenges. The seas were treacherous, and the gods, ever unpredictable, continued to intervene in the Argonauts' fate. The crew found themselves faced with a series of new obstacles, both physical and divine, that would push their courage, endurance, and ingenuity to the limit. One of the first significant challenges the Argonauts encountered on their return journey was the Symplegades, the clashing rocks they had passed through earlier on their journey to Colchis. The Symplegades were not a one-time obstacle. Because the rocks were alive and constantly moving, they posed a danger each time someone sailed through them. The Argonauts had already navigated through the Symplegades once, and the fear of facing them again weighed heavily on the crew. With King Aeetes' forces in hot pursuit, the Argonauts needed to pass through the deadly gap between the rocks once more. The Symplegades were a reminder of the unpredictability of the sea, and any mistake could mean disaster. Once again, the dove method used successfully earlier was employed to determine if it was possible to safely pass through. The Argonauts released a dove, and the outcome was as before: the bird flew safely through the gap, giving them hope. With precise navigation, they managed to pass through the Symplegades using the same strategy they had employed previously. However, this time the situation was more dire as Aeetes' forces were closing in, and the rocks themselves presented a constant threat. As the Argonauts sailed deeper into the Black Sea, they were faced with more natural dangers. The sea monsters and dangerous creatures that populated these waters were not just mythological terrors, they were tests of the Argonauts' resourcefulness and survival skills. The gods still watching over the crew often tested their resolve through violent storms and deadly creatures. One of the most significant threats was the encounter with Charybdis, the whirlpool that could swallow entire ships, and Scylla, the multi-headed sea monster. These creatures, though familiar from Greek mythology, represented the chaotic forces of nature that the Argonauts had to overcome to continue their journey. With the relentless chase from Aeetes' forces and the monsters on the sea, the Argonauts found themselves fighting on two fronts: the external, physical dangers of the ocean, and the constant internal pressure to stay ahead of the pursuing army. The tension mounted with each passing day, and the Argonauts learned firsthand the extent to which they could push their own limits to survive. Throughout their return journey, the gods continued to play a major role in the lives of the Argonauts. While some gods like Athena offered protection and guidance, others, particularly Zeus, sent storms and tempest to impede their progress. The gods, ever fickle, did not offer a consistent path for the Argonauts to follow, making their journey even more uncertain. However, the gods were not just adversaries. Hera, the goddess of marriage and protector of heroes, intervened on the Argonauts' behalf. She sent Phineus, the blind prophet, to provide guidance, once again advising them on the best ways to avoid the dangers ahead. The divine help the Argonauts received was crucial to their survival, as it was only through the favor of the gods that they could continue. While the Argonauts' bravery and skills played a major role in their survival, it was Medea, the powerful sorceress, and Jason's devoted ally, who remained the most pivotal force in ensuring their safe passage through the dangers of the return journey. Medea's knowledge of magic and her connection to the gods made her an invaluable asset during the difficult voyage home. As King Aeetes and his army relentlessly pursued the Argonauts, Medea knew that they needed more than just speed and strategy to evade capture. They needed to ensure that Aeetes' forces would not follow them to the ends of the earth. Medea, using her knowledge of magic, devised a clever plan to thwart her father's pursuit. In one of her most daring acts of magical intervention, Medea summoned a fog that obscured the vision of Aeetes' forces. This allowed the Argonauts to escape the immediate threat of the Colchian army without being caught. The fog, combined with her spellbinding enchantments, created a window of opportunity that allowed the Argonauts to continue their journey without the looming threat of capture. In another instance, Medea used illusion magic to disguise the Argonaut ship and make it appear as though they were still in Colchis, while the real ship sailed ahead to safety. This trickery, combined with her strategic intelligence, allowed them to evade the pursuit for a critical time. When the Argonauts encountered the sea monsters and the terrifying Scylla and Charybdis, it was Medea's divine connection that proved invaluable. She had knowledge of ancient rituals and spells that allowed her to calm the beasts and provide protection for the ship. Through her incantations, Medea was able to weaken the pull of Charybdis, allowing the Argonauts to narrowly escape the whirlpool. At the same time, she used her magical powers to shield the ship from the deadly attacks of Scylla, whose multiple heads could tear the ship apart in a single attack. Medea's calming influence allowed the Argonauts to escape unharmed. Even when the gods themselves sought to challenge the Argonauts, Medea stood as a protective force. She was deeply connected to the divine realm, and her magic allowed her to seek divine favor in times of great peril. Whether through calming storms or guiding the Argonauts through treacherous waters, Medea's actions often ensured their survival against both mortal and immortal threats. Her involvement with the gods, especially Hera, who had aided her in previous tasks, allowed Medea to seek divine protection when needed. She knew how to invoke the gods' support at critical moments, and her relationship with them was a powerful tool in keeping the Argonauts safe from harm. Throughout the perilous journey back to Iolcos, Medea's presence was the single most important factor in the Argonauts' survival. From her magical assistance in evading King Aeetes' pursuit to her strategic use of illusion magic, and her connection to the divine Medea proved time and again that without her the Argonauts would not have made it home. Her role was not just that of a helper or an ally. Medea was a central force in the success of the mission. Her love for Jason, combined with her intelligence, wisdom, and power, made her indispensable to the crew. Jason, though grateful, would soon face the consequences of relying on her, but for now, her magic was their greatest protection. The return journey with its many obstacles demonstrated the importance of cooperation, wisdom, and sacrifice. Medea's role was not merely that of a passive companion, but an active participant in the success of the Argonauts. Through her love for Jason and her immense magical abilities, Medea ensured that the crew survived the dangers they faced, though the ultimate cost of their victory would not become fully clear until later. As the Argonauts neared home, they were closer than ever to completing their quest, but they could not know yet that the most difficult trials were still to come. Having successfully completed the impossible trial set by King Aeetes and retrieved the Golden Fleece, Jason and the Argonauts began their journey home. With Medea's magical help, they managed to evade the vengeful pursuit of Aeetes and his forces, overcoming numerous dangers on the way. Now the Argonauts were headed back to Iolcos, their mission almost complete. However, their return would not be as triumphant as they had hoped. Jason's uncle Perilous, the usurper of the throne of Iolcos, awaited their return, and the stage was set for a final confrontation that would change the fates of all involved. In this section, we will explore Jason's return to Iolcos, the confrontation with Perilous, the shift in Jason and Medea's relationship, and the tragic consequences of their victory. After many long months of perilous travel, Jason and the Argonauts finally returned to Iolcos, the land Jason had once ruled as heir to the throne. Their arrival was heralded with cheers from the people, for they had completed the impossible. They had retrieved the Golden Fleece, a symbol of divine favor and ultimate kingship. But despite their victory, Jason knew that he could not simply walk into the palace and reclaim his throne without facing the consequences of his actions and the bitterness of his uncle Perilous, who had long since stolen the throne from Jason's father. Perilous, though initially fearful of the prophecy that foretold his downfall at the hands of a man with one sandal, had solidified his rule through deceit and oppression. Despite Jason's successful completion of his quest, Perilous remained obstinate in his refusal to relinquish the throne. Upon Jason's return, Perilous' response was not one of celebration, but of suspicion and defiance. When Jason arrived at Iolcos, Perilous greeted him coldly, though outwardly he may have pretended to honor the hero's return. The reality was that Perilous had no intention of surrendering the throne, despite the fact that Jason had completed the impossible task of retrieving the Golden Fleece. Perilous had made his own power base secure, and he was not about to give up what he had fought so hard to take. Jason knew that reclaiming the throne would not come easily. As an heir to the throne of Iolcos, his return should have been a cause for celebration, but instead it was the catalyst for a final confrontation. Perilous, seeing the threat Jason posed to his rule, was unwilling to simply hand over the power he had stolen. The tension between the two men was palpable, and both knew that their destinies were about to collide once more. While Jason faced his uncle Medea, the powerful sorceress became a central figure in the unfolding drama. Her loyalty to Jason and her growing relationship with him had led her to make tremendous sacrifices. Not only had she helped Jason complete the impossible tasks set by her father, but she had also defied her own family kingdom and destiny to aid him in his quest. She had become an inseparable part of Jason's mission, and her love for him had deepened along the way. In the confrontation with Perilous, Medea's role would prove critical, as Jason's wife Medea's magic and wisdom were invaluable in the political struggles that would unfold. However, it was through her deceptive cunning that she would play a pivotal role in bringing about Perilous' downfall. Medea knew her father Aeetes had taught her much about manipulation and the power of illusion, and she was prepared to use all her knowledge to help Jason seize the throne. Medea's first act of intervention was subtle but effective. Knowing Perilous' arrogance and pride, Medea set up a plot designed to destroy him. She convinced Perilous' daughters that by performing a ritual to rejuvenate their father, they could ensure his eternal youth and power. Medea, using her magical potions, promised them that by cutting their father into pieces and boiling him in a magical cauldron, they could restore him to youth and vigor. The daughters, trusting Medea's promises, foolishly followed her instructions, believing that they were acting out of love for their father. However, Medea's true plan was to deceive them into killing Perilous. As the daughters boiled their father's dismembered body, believing they were restoring his vitality, Perilous was ultimately killed. This act, orchestrated by Medea, was a critical turning point in the struggle for the throne. Peleus's tragic end was the culmination of Medea's vengeance. She had not only taken her father's life, but also ensured that Jason could reclaim his throne without further bloodshed. This act of deception and violence demonstrated Medea's power and her willingness to go to extreme lengths for the man she loved. It also foreshadowed the tragic consequences of Jason and Medea's relationship. What had been a bond based on love and mutual assistance would soon unravel in a series of events driven by betrayal and revenge. After the events that led to Peleus's death, Jason and Medea's relationship began to shift in ways that would have far-reaching consequences. Medea had sacrificed everything for Jason, defying her father, her homeland, and her family to help him complete his mission. However, while Jason had relied heavily on Medea's magic and wisdom during the trials, he was now beginning to see her in a different light, especially as his political ambitions took precedence over personal matters. Jason's primary goal had always been to reclaim his rightful throne. His love for Medea, though real, was somewhat overshadowed by his desire for power and stability. After Peleus's death, Jason began to see himself as a ruler, and his thoughts turned to securing alliances, consolidating power, and marrying into other influential families. It was during this time that Jason chose to marry Creusa, the daughter of King Creon of Corinth, in order to solidify his political position. Medea, who had given up everything for Jason, her family, her homeland, and even her own future, was devastated by Jason's betrayal. She had trusted him completely, believing that their bond was built on mutual respect and love. However, Jason's decision to marry Creusa in the interest of his own political future left Medea feeling betrayed and abandoned. This rejection marked the beginning of the tragic unraveling of their relationship. The death of Perilous, the brutal act of Medea's revenge, and Jason's subsequent betrayal created a perfect storm of tragedy and regret. While Jason had achieved his long-sought victory and reclaimed the throne of Iolcos, the cost of this success was high. The events that transpired after Jason's return showed that victory and power were often accompanied by moral compromise and personal loss. For Medea, the consequences of helping Jason were profound. She had sacrificed everything, her family, her homeland, her loyalty to her father, all for Jason's cause. Her betrayal of her own bloodline had been a heart-wrenching decision, but it had been made out of love and the belief that she was helping Jason reclaim what was rightfully his. In return, she had hoped for a life built with Jason, a life of love, respect, and shared dreams. Instead, she was met with his betrayal. The emotional cost of Jason's actions would lead to a series of tragic events that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Medea, heartbroken and angry, would later take matters into her own hands, carrying out one of the most shocking acts of revenge in Greek mythology. The consequences of Jason's decisions, his political ambitions, and betrayal of the woman who had helped him would ultimately lead to his own downfall. While Jason's victory in reclaiming his throne seemed like the fulfillment of his destiny, it came at the expense of his humanity. In his pursuit of power and the throne, Jason had lost the one thing that had truly made him a hero, the loyalty and love of Medea. The tragic irony of Jason's story is that the very victory he had sought so desperately led him to a lonely and bitter end. Jason's return to Iolcos marked the end of his long and arduous journey to reclaim his birthright, but it also marked the beginning of a series of tragic events that would shape the rest of his life. Peleus's death, orchestrated by Medea, paved the way for Jason's return to power, but it also set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately destroy his relationships and his sense of self. The love between Jason and Medea, which had been built on mutual trust and sacrifice, quickly turned into a tragic tale of betrayal, revenge, and loss. Medea's sacrifices, her magical assistance, and her unwavering devotion to Jason had secured his victory, but they came at the ultimate price. Jason's failure to appreciate and reciprocate her love would lead to devastating consequences both for Medea and for himself. The tragic irony of Jason's story is that power, while achieved, did not bring him happiness or peace. Instead, it resulted in isolation and regret. Medea, too, would be left to confront the consequences of her love, and her story would become one of the most heartbreaking and tragic in all of Greek mythology. In the end, Jason's victory over Perilous and his restoration to the throne of Iolcos was a hollow triumph, one that came with the ultimate cost. It was a victory that would haunt him for the rest of his days, and the love of Medea, once a source of strength and hope, would become a symbol of the high price of betrayal and the tragic consequences of unrequited love. Jason's journey to retrieve the Golden Fleece was marked by both triumph and tragedy. After enduring the trials set by King Aeetes, receiving Medea's crucial help, and ultimately reclaiming the fleece, Jason and the Argonauts returned to Iolcos, where victory turned to bitterness. Jason's political ambitions led to a betrayal of Medea which would haunt him for the rest of his life. However, despite the personal tragedies and the emotional costs, Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece remains one of the most iconic adventures in Greek mythology, having a profound influence on Greek culture and offering timeless lessons about leadership, loyalty, sacrifice, and the complexity of human ambition. This section will explore the lasting legacy of Jason's journey, the cultural impact of the Golden Fleece, and the moral lessons embedded in the story of Jason and his companions, the Argonauts. The quest for the Golden Fleece holds a prominent place in Greek mythology, not only because of the epic nature of the journey, but also because of the cultural and symbolic importance the story carried. The myth reflects key themes that were central to the ancient Greek worldview: the tension between human ambition and the will of the gods, the hero's quest for honor and glory, and the idea of divine intervention in human affairs. The story of Jason and the Argonauts would be retold in various forms through epic poems, plays, and art, and became a foundational narrative for Greek identity and values. In ancient Greek culture, the quest for the Golden Fleece symbolized the ultimate hero's journey, one that required more than just physical strength, but also wisdom, moral integrity, and the ability to navigate the complex relationships between gods and mortals. Jason's actions and the challenges he faced were not just for personal gain, but were tied to larger questions about the nature of fate, destiny, and the divine right to rule. The myth was didactic, teaching the ancient Greeks about the importance of virtue cooperation and the need to rely on intelligence and strategy rather than sheer force. The Golden Fleece itself became a powerful symbol in Greek art and literature. It represented not only the physical object that Jason and his crew sought, but also a metaphor for divine favor and the right to rule. Kings and leaders in ancient Greece, like those in the Argonauts myth, often faced the struggle between legitimate power and usurpation, and the Golden Fleece came to represent the ideals of justice, wisdom, and the divine sanction required to rule. In many ways, the fleece embodied the ideal of heroic leadership, a ruler who earned the right to lead by demonstrating bravery, wisdom, and moral strength. Additionally, the Argonauts, as a diverse band of heroes, symbolized the Greek ideal of teamwork and solidarity. The Argonauts' journey was a collaborative effort that showed the value of unity in diversity, as each member contributed their skills and expertise to overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. This emphasis on collective effort was a reflection of the Greek belief in community and the notion that individual greatness often relied on the support of others. The myth of Jason and the Argonauts is not just a tale of adventure and bravery. It also contains important moral lessons that were vital in shaping Greek values and continue to resonate today. The story provides insights into the complexities of human nature, leadership, and the choices people make when faced with difficult situations. One of the central themes of the Golden Fleece myth is the cost of ambition. Jason's quest was driven by his desire to reclaim his throne and restore his family's honor. However, this noble ambition came at a significant cost. Throughout the journey, Jason made sacrifices, most notably his reliance on Medea, who risked everything to help him. Yet in the end, Jason's pursuit of glory and his political ambitions led him to betray Medea, the very person who had made his success possible. This betrayal illustrates a powerful lesson: the pursuit of glory can lead to moral compromises, and the drive for personal gain can have unintended consequences. Jason's actions suggest that the desire for personal power and recognition can cloud one's judgment and lead to the neglect of those who are essential to success. Ambition, when unchecked by moral considerations, can destroy relationships and result in personal isolation. This lesson resonated with the Greek audience, who valued ethical leadership and the idea that personal honor and integrity should not be sacrificed for political gain. Another crucial lesson from Jason's journey is the importance of wisdom and strategy. Jason was not the strongest or the most powerful of the Argonauts, but his leadership, intelligence, and strategic thinking were what ultimately allowed the crew to overcome the impossible tasks set by King Aeetes. Jason's reliance on Medea's magic and his willingness to listen to others, such as Phineus the prophet, demonstrate that success often depends on brain over brawn. In Greek society, wisdom was held in high regard, and leaders were expected to be wise in their decision-making. Jason's success was ultimately due to his ability to think critically and make the right choice even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. This emphasis on intellectual leadership over brute strength was an important lesson for Greek rulers who were often faced with difficult political and military decisions. Perhaps the most enduring lesson from the story of Jason and the Argonauts is the value of teamwork. The Argonauts were a diverse group, with each hero bringing their unique skills to the table. From the mighty Heracles to the musical genius Orpheus, each member of the crew contributed to the success of the mission. The myth emphasizes that even the greatest individual hero needs allies and support to succeed. Collective effort was a core value in Greek culture, and the Argonauts' journey underscored the importance of working together, especially when facing great adversity. Jason's leadership was instrumental in bringing together a team of such legendary figures, but it was the cooperation and unity of the group that allowed them to defeat the challenges they encountered. The lesson here is clear: no one person can achieve greatness alone. It is through collaboration, trust, and mutual respect that even the most daunting tasks can be accomplished. The Golden Fleece itself became a lasting symbol in Greek culture. It was more than just an object. It was a symbol of divine power and legitimacy. The fleece represented the idea that rulership, particularly of a kingdom, required not only divine approval, but also wisdom, strength, and the ability to navigate the complex relationships between gods and mortals. The quest to retrieve the fleece was a metaphor for the journey every ruler must undertake: a trial of character, a test of leadership, and a confirmation of divine favor. The fleece's significance also extended beyond the myth itself. The idea of divine favor and just rule was central to Greek political thought. Leaders were expected to be not just physically strong, but also morally upright and capable of earning the favor of the gods. The Golden Fleece became a powerful cultural symbol of the right to rule, the legitimacy that comes with divine support, and the sacrifices that leaders must make in order to succeed. In literature, the story of Jason and the Argonauts was used as a vehicle for moral instruction. It warned of the dangers of unbridled ambition and self-interest and the consequences of betraying those who help us achieve our goals. It also emphasized the importance of virtue and the ethical responsibilities of leaders. Medea's tragic fate served as a stark reminder of the cost of betrayal, while the Argonauts' unity highlighted the value of cooperation in overcoming obstacles. Thank you so much for following along with this incredible journey through the quest for the Golden Fleece. We've covered a lot of ground, from the challenges Jason and the Argonauts faced in their epic pursuit of the fleece to the timeless lessons they and we can learn from their triumphs and mistakes. As we've seen, this myth is not just about adventure and danger. It's also about leadership, sacrifice, and the choices we make in the pursuit of power and glory. The Golden Fleece itself represents the ultimate prize, but it also serves as a powerful reminder that success often comes with a heavy price. Jason's journey shows us that sometimes what we think we want may come at the expense of those we love and trust. Medea, who sacrificed everything for Jason, teaches us that loyalty and betrayal are not only crucial in the quest for personal achievement, but also shape the course of our relationships and our legacy. The myth of Jason and the Argonauts left a deep mark on Greek culture, influencing everything from art literature to modern storytelling. The themes of ambition, betrayal, and teamwork still resonate with us today, making this one of the most powerful and enduring stories in history. If you enjoyed this dive into Greek mythology, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel for more exciting explorations of timeless myths and stories. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Golden Fleece and the lessons it teaches. What do you think Jason's greatest flaw was? Or do you think Medea's actions were justified? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the journey. Take care, and if you're heading to bed, I wish you a peaceful and restful night. Sweet dreams, and I look forward to our next adventure together.